Hi, Steph. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We are just going to wait for our guest. Oh, here he is. Ah, there he is. What's up?
I wasn't sure I was going to make it. It took a long time in hair and makeup.
No, I know. I mean, you have to look beautiful.
Right.
This is like serious.
Right. This
I
is
mean,
important.
I'm a little nervous. I have Phil Collins looking at me in the background.
Do you? You have Amy Winehouse over there too, and Whitney Houston, and there's Michael Jackson. All my friends are here.
I mean, your friends are here, but he's looking at me. He doesn't look so happy.
I'm going to move him. That was not his best look.
Exactly.
So how does this work? We waiting for people to show up?
No, I think we're going to start because there seems to be, people coming in. So, I'm really excited that you were able to come on tonight. I wanted to do this for a long time, right?
I'm a huge fan of yours, so.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm ready. And as we said, you're going to direct things. You don't want the ADD guy moving.
No. We'll direct it. I'll make sure to keep it short so that people don't, fall asleep in 3 hours.
Right.
So let me introduce you. This is, move over OG Anunoby. He's my favorite raptor. We have the OG of ADHD here. Literally before ADHD was a thing, we have our Mike Ben Chaim, and he's going to tell us everything that we need to know about living with ADHD before ADHD was a thing. So Mike, thanks for coming. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I'm going to talk about you. Oh, no, you talk about you.
Yeah, in fact, actually, it's now AADHD. I've graduated to adult attention deficit hyperactive disorder. I just keep adding letters. My mother's very proud. She meets people introducing her to their son. Oh, this is my son, Greg Schwartz, MD. And she goes, what, only 2 letters?
Look at mine.
I just keep adding. We're doing good.
Yeah,
So
the more letters, the better, right? So I'm going to tell everyone a little bit about you and how you use something which, a lot of people consider a negative kind of diagnosis into something into a positive light, and you figured out a way to, do amazing things in your life. So,
only took 50 years.
What?
Only took 50 years to figure it out.
It took time, but you got there, right?
For sure.
I mean, everything from DJing, salesman, actor for Tina, Tony and Tina's wedding. What else did you do? Second City, national touring, like crazy things. Hosting live events throughout Toronto and Playboy's 50th anniversary. I mean, it doesn't stop, right? That's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, Hugh.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing, right? I can't even imagine what it was like to be hosting an event like that.
Yeah, even if you pronounced my name wrong, I was pleased that he mentioned me.
Listen, it's not an easy name. It's a hard Moroccan name.
Right.
How did he say it?
He said Ben Haim. Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Haim.
All right. Well,
I was
sounds
just
good to
happy
me.
he said my name. I was like, oh.
Listen, you got acknowledged by Hugh. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And then you went on to doing a lot of writing, which actually, for a lot of my students, writing is probably one of the hardest tasks that they have, right? To organize your ideas and to get your thoughts down on paper. So knowing that you became this, blogger under a fake identity, and then you became a music blogger and you started your own weekly column. I mean, you're doing crazy things that I think probably for most children with ADHD, that would be a challenge. So, I'd love you to kind of fill us in on your life with ADHD as a kid to start off with, and then we'll kind of keep pushing forward.
Well, if they had had a term for it, like attention deficit disorder, would have helped, because one of the biggest things they said was your child always needs attention. And I would have been able to quip, hey, I've got a deficit in that department. But it didn't really have that excuse. And the greatest thing I was going to say, the reason I love watching you is because my father inherently, without knowing anything about parenting, okay, just knew one thing that came in handy, and that was there's no excuses.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something, so you got to work harder, you got to work harder. I really wish somebody could have given me some advice beyond buckle down, try harder, concentrate. You know, it's like telling someone who's worrying not to worry.
Totally.
Right? Telling someone who can't concentrate to concentrate. But if anybody was paying attention, every time there was something I really loved to do, I did it full focus for some reason. Right? So
hyper focus.
Yeah. So I just had to figure that out over the years. Also listening to the things that people say, right? People don't, there's not a lot of sympathy for ADD or ADHD. People basically look at you and say, you know, he's an idiot, right? So I got a lot of idiot. And just somewhere along the way, I had to figure out how to listen to the right people. Right? Because there were people along the way saying, you know, you're good at this. You've got something here. And the rest of the time it was, shut up, stop talking.
Too much.
Yeah. And so that's really what it took. It took a lot of years, and it took meeting my wife too, who's a very patient and supportive, you'd have to be, right? And supportive person who let me know along the way. She goes, no, you know, that was good what you did. It wasn't, you know, don't look at yourself and think, oh, I shouldn't have talked that much.
Or said that, right?
Yeah. Oh, but I shouldn't have said that is a big one, right? I don't know if it's everybody or it's just me, but sometimes we're just, you know, trying to get everything out and say the wrong thing or say too much.
There was, you know, I have also like some students that I have, which are very similar, where it's like everything it's like a vomit of information. So you got to teach them to own in. But then I have others who it's the initiation's a problem. So you might ask them something and they can't even get a word out because they're so in their head trying to figure out how to organize, what to say, how to say it. And I think that that's actually worse, right? Better to have it out there and let's kind of track it back than be so worried about, you know, what others are thinking and how you're being perceived and all the information that you're sharing. Because typically in all of that, you have some pretty good stuff that you're kind of getting out that's people need to hear.
But that's why writing is good.
Right.
You throw it all down onto a paper and then you can go back and edit it.
Right.
You have a moment to think it over. Otherwise, this just comes out of your mouth.
Comes out like crazy, like daggers.
It's regurgitation. And,
I know, right?
And sometimes you have to stop it.
So what would you say like was the biggest challenge growing up for you? I guess the impulsivity, right? Some of that.
Yeah, school was, I mean, especially in our time where they wanted you to sit quietly and behave and you know, do, and that just, I don't even know how that works for anyone.
It doesn't.
Who is, who that you know that has done anything great in life did it by sitting and obeying and listening and following the rules and never stepping outside? The biggest thing that I decided that my father hammered, other than don't quit, and you know, he used to not let me quit if things were hard. And in fact, I learned way too late that I should never have told him I wanted to quit anything because it was hard. Because that was the worst thing you could say to my dad. He'd go, hard? Now you're going to stick with it.
Do it again.
Right. If it's hard, if that's the reason, then you continue. But yeah, focusing is obviously when stuff is being repeated and maybe I already got it, right? And some people are still, you know, the class works at different, we all learn at different levels. Yeah, boredom is not a good thing for ADHD. And one of the things I did learn from my father that he hammered, I only had him for a few short years. My father died just before my 18th birthday. Yeah. And I remembered everything he said. That's the thing I took with me. And he would not let me quit and sort of the facing the fear thing.
Oh yeah, that's
if you're afraid of something, you have to. And I've been doing that for 40 years now, really. If I'm afraid of it, I got to do it. The longer I stay away from it, the worse it is.
I'm exactly the same. I like try things that I just have to, you know, I have to, if it's in my mind, I just got to try it, even though if I'm terrified to do it. Yeah. But I always, you know, and, you know, I tell the families that I work with the same thing is you got to push yourself out of that comfort zone, because the second you do, that's when you're your best. And so right now, you know, these students that I'm working with, these school age kids, they're in this box and they have to be able to do all these amazing things within this box, but they're out here. And so this is the hardest time for them. And I always try to say, like, right now it's the struggle, but the second you get out of school age and you can get into either university or do your own thing, once you can do your own thing, you're going to be the best at it. Because you have that hyper focus, right?
When you get out of the regimented, I went to Hebrew school, right? Great school. It was a great school. Herzliya in Montreal, by the way. Anybody? Nobody. Okay, Herzliya.
We don't do Montreal, okay? I'm just joking. All of you people from Montreal, we love you.
It's like Montreal's version of chat, only better. And a little bit academically, just slightly in the French department.
We're much smarter. We're much smarter than those people.
Right, sure. But when I got into CEGEP, which is college, some people, it's college. Yeah. It's not quite university, but it's college. Suddenly I was able to take anything I wanted, and I took a theater course. And the guy gave us no homework. He said, my class is going to be, I want you to keep a journal. Nobody, I mean, not a single person in this class really kept the journal. Every class we were supposed to keep a journal. And at the end, he said, I won't tell you what he said because he was college and he was allowed to say whatever he wanted. Right. He said, you guys pissed me off, and now I need something that is worth the final mark that was supposed to be your journals. I need you to give me something creative. And at the time, I wrote a rap about the entire class, what we had done, and presented it to him. And I hope nobody from my class is here, but too bad if they are. I got the highest mark in the class, which never happened to me in my life. Even if I was the best student in the class, I never, ever got the highest mark in the class. It just wouldn't be given to me.
Right.
On principle. Because I was an idiot.
Right. Oh, yeah, exactly.
You're not going to give the idiot a 95, which is what I got. And I was, it was a cool moment for me. And the teacher sort of said something to me afterwards as well, which was nice. Gave me a little encouragement.
Yeah, well, that's the best thing. When you do get those little moments of encouragement, right? That can take you anywhere, right? Like, you remember that story.
High school here, Stacy. Hi, Stacy. She knows. She was in my class. She knows. I could have written the most brilliant thing in the world, and the teacher would, no way. There's no way. Okay? It just wouldn't get it.
It's often like that now, too. Like, it's not like things have changed that much, unfortunately. You know, you can get to some schools where, you know, they're able to provide and able to give, you know, strategies and tools, but it's never enough. I feel it's never enough. So I'm happy that you had that one teacher that reached out and you remember that moment, right? And it probably made you feel great.
Actually, and after that would have been grade 10. In grade 11, I had something else interesting that happened. I was not the best student in the class. Let's just leave it at that. And in grade 11, I knew I had to now, you know, get into college and do all my stuff. By the way, Montreal High School is still grade 11, right? And one of the teachers made me sit at the front of the class, and it was the first time in my life that I realized that if I'm at the front of the class, the only person I'm really going to talk to is the teacher. Mm-hmm. And if I treat it like a conversation between me and the teacher, I picked up my average by a huge amount in my last year in high school. Yeah.
She took away all the distractions.
Yeah.
She was the only distraction.
Oh, no, it was a he.
Good one. Oh, he was the only.
It was a he, and but it just happened to be. He said, "No, I want you in the front in my class," and I started sitting there all year for all classes, and it did really, really well for me.
Yeah, so that's a really good strategy for kids to use. Often, you know, kids with ADHD, they want to sit in the back, not to be noticed, right? And then the problem is things need to be novel, it needs to be exciting. If it's boring, you are done. So if you're sitting in the class, it's novelty, right? Because you get to see everything that's happening. But in the back, you're done.
I don't know how they teach nowadays, but in our day, with the teacher up on the blackboard, you could just
Oh, yeah.
just, I'm looking at this guy's back while he's writing, struggling to write in chalk on a blackboard. You're not going to survive that. No.
So that's an amazing strategy. And, I never actually think about it, but that's true. Like, kids who have those type of challenges should be sitting in the front just to keep their attention on and focus, and also be afraid of being called on sometimes, because that keeps you engaged. And it's true. The teacher at the blackboard thing, thank God that I don't think that happens as much as it did, but that's how I learned also. And it's tedious. It is tedious for everybody. What would you say, like, how did having ADHD empower you to do, like, all these amazing things that you've done?
Ultimately, you don't have a choice, because you just don't, you feel always out of your comfort zone. So that's part of the thing about facing your fears. I got used to being outside of my comfort zone, and when I would see other people who would remain tightly guarded in their comfort zone, I'd go, what's wrong with you, man? You got to get out. And they'd say, yeah, who are you to talk? And I'd go, I do it all the time. I do it every day. I'm out of my comfort zone. So right. I push myself consciously to face that all the time, get out of my comfort zone.
It's funny because for you, you're such a natural talker, right? So I think for those people probably thought, well, it's easy for him. That's what he does.
That part was easy.
Right. But the truth is, in every aspect, things change. When you're in class, it's not the same as when you're talking to your friends. I know for me, like, this social media thing, it took me a long time. This is not within my comfort zone, but I'm sweating, like, it's not my thing, but I'm doing it because I know how important it is. But also, this is my way of kind of also taking a risk, and then, chatting with people like you. So it's been pretty.
And you're doing well because you're doing what you know. That's the first thing they said to me when I started writing, right? What you know.
You have to do it. Yeah.
Try to make up some other shit, then you're in trouble. Just write what you know, talk about what you know, and you'll be passionate and you'll be good.
That's right. Listen, and all I know is my job, and I know being a parent, because that's what I am, and I know the struggles that parents go through. And I also have daughters that have their own sets of challenges. So I know whenever I've spoken to you a few times, by phone or whatever, everything that you've always said, I've always had kind of in the back of my mind, or messages that you sent me. And it's been great. I've had so many people reach out to me about this live because they found they were so excited to have somebody with experience, not just a professional telling them what and how. And,
I'm a professional, but
not in that way.
Professional at being ADHD.
Exactly.
And no sympathy growing up. So the most amazing thing is I'm reading some of these things coming out here. Yeah. And that's really cool, because shit, those things weren't being said when I was growing up.
Oh yeah, listen, that's the truth. That's why, especially having you on it was like prior to really knowing what it was, right? What ADHD could be, what it was, and how great people with ADHD and how much they can achieve, right? It's not like a deficiency, right? I always say, like, it's a superpower once you're able to. Totally. So, we're having comments like getting out of your comfort zone, feeling the fear, that's a huge one. Is we shouldn't always feel comfortable. When you're comfortable, you can never achieve as much as you'd like. So push yourself. And I love that you always share that message. Are there any other?
I used to wear suits to work. For like 20 years, I wore suits to work. And someone would say to me, aren't you uncomfortable? And they go, well, I'd say, well, I'm at work. I want to feel like I'm at work. I don't want to, if I'm casual, if I'm wearing sweats, I'm going to feel like, you know what I mean? I'm going to feel like I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Little things like that make a difference. I didn't do it because of any great master plan. I just did it because that's the way I felt. It's one of those things that you got to get yourself up for it, right? Or whatever.
Listen, to be too comfortable is actually it's a problem. I know for me, my worst ever exam, I'll tell you this story. I hope nobody judges me. My worst ever exam that I wrote, I realized that I was sitting on the chair. I took off my shoes. I was folding my leg. I was comfortable. And then I got my mark and I realized, so I was too comfortable. My mind wasn't active. It wasn't working. It wasn't like spitting fire, right? Because I was like a couch potato. Yeah, you need a little bit of that.
Great. Yeah, you need a little bit of, not completely you know, like if you have a fear of snakes and you got a snake around your face, but a little bit of fear should be, yeah, it's motivating
In
as hell.
everything, right? What would you want to share, for example, with parents of children who have ADHD? What would be like some,
Waiting for that.
some like words of wisdom?
I don't know about wisdom. I just know that as a kid that really could have used someone telling him the right thing. Just if you would have said to me, there were people along the way who just said the right thing to me, and it made all the difference. A teacher called my house once. In my day, when a teacher called your school, your house, you were schooled. Okay? And I answered the phone. And this was a French teacher, so we spoke all in French. I'll do it in English for you. I said, hey, my parents aren't here. And he goes, that's okay. I don't want to speak to your parents. I want to talk to you. And I was like, what? And he said, listen, I read this paper you wrote. I think you really have something. And I'd like to give you an extra assignment to see if you are what you told me that, and got me like, wow, somebody thinks I'm not an idiot for just a minute. And I didn't want to let him down. That's number one.
That's a huge piece, yeah.
Did not want to let him down. I would like for someone to say to you, I believe you can do it, and then you do it and they go, I was wrong.
Oh, shit.
Right? It's like, worst thing that could happen for someone to say, I thought you were better than that, but now you're not. So one of the greatest thing that I'll just repeat is that what my father used to say to me, or not let me get away with, there were no excuses. There was no, oh, well, he has trouble concentrating, so give him a break. Mm-hmm. He never took my side against the teacher.
Right.
Because my job was to go to school and to learn and to work within,
figure it out.
You know, the whatever the rules were of school, just like you have to in work and in life. Nobody gives a shit if you're, excuse me, but nobody cares if you have an issue. You can't call in. You get one excuse a year at work. You know, oh man, I was really not myself. Something happened. I don't know if the rest of you who've had employees, if you have an employee that's had a grandmother die and a mother and a dog get sick and a pigeon who hit their car and like repeatedly, those people, after the first one, you go, oh, I feel bad for you, take the day, you know. Mm-hmm. After a couple, you start to go, well, this person just can't handle life.
Right.
So you need to be able to handle life, and you need to be able to not cry about it. And as parents, that's what you got to teach the kid. You got to teach the kid that, okay, they got to, you know, my partner in the music business here was, I won't name his name, but I love him to pieces. One of the most brilliant guys, wonderful, wonderful human being, is dyslexic. And he's just brilliant. Sometimes I would go, like, we'd be in the middle of a party and we had a book with all the music in it. And I'd go, find me this song. And he'd go, it's not in here. And I take the book and I'd go,
right here.
It's right here alphabetically under the alphabet. But he used to have trouble with that. And yet he did everything, no excuses, never complained, never even mentioned his issue. And it hasn't stopped him in life. He works hard. He never complains. I mean, aren't those the best people you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's like, I don't know. For me, that's a huge piece, because I always tell parents, is the second you tell your kid, it's okay, I get it, it's hard, don't worry about it, I'll talk to your teacher, pretty much what you're telling your kid is, you can't do it, as opposed to being like, you got it, I'll sit with you, fine. I want you to get something down on paper and then show it to me. I'll kind of be there along the way. But bottom line is, if I'm asking you to do it, and if your teacher's asking you to do it, it's because you can do it. So get over it. Let's figure out a way. Let's teach you the skills. And that's, you know, I've started this whole parenting coaching part of my business because of that. I want parents to, you know, empower their kids rather than, if you give them the easy way out, what you're telling them is they suck and they can't do it, as opposed to, man, I believe in you. And you got to be tough on them, right? It can't always be easy. That's not life, unfortunately.
Also, the fact that they think that's going to work outside of their home.
Right.
You know, did you ever? Did you ever go to camp? Overnight camp?
Of course.
Overnight camp was the greatest learning experience for me.
Me too.
The first time I went, because you could be at home and go, you can whine and go, I don't want to. Try that in a section full of other kids, and you get punched in the face 2 or 3 times before you realize, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. Okay, that was in the late 70s, early 80s. I don't know anybody's doing that now, but still, I mean, that's how you learned what was outside of home. Your parents might let you, not my parents, but some parents will let you get away with things, and then you go out into the real world, and your peers will not.
Right.
So it's not a good idea.
Sometimes, you know, we do it as parents because we also just want it to be done, right? It's easier to just let it go, but we're not sending the right message. We have a really good question here, actually. At what grade did you realize that focusing was getting harder in class, and you felt it was becoming more difficult?
Oh, I was brilliant until grade 4. I'm not kidding. I was like ahead of the game. I was so bored. Not my behavior wasn't great, obviously, for obvious reasons, but I had learned to read and write and do. I was an excellent speller. I was way ahead of everybody, most people. Not everybody, but I was, way ahead until about grade 4, grade 5. Math started to give me trouble in grade 4, grade 5, but English and French and stuff I was really good at. Hebrew even. I learned Hebrew because I went to shul with my dad, so I was reading Hebrew regularly and learning it at the same time, so I was actually understanding what I was reading, unlike most people at the synagogue, from 5 or 6 years old. I'm not kidding. So when I got to grade 1 in Montreal, I was seriously way, way ahead of everyone. It was in grade 6 where somebody started to mention something. I still had a couple of good teachers who were nice. Somewhere around grade 6, grade 7, I went to see the school psychiatrist, if there is even such a thing. I don't know. It's not a psychologist.
Counselor, a social worker.
Yeah, whatever. He sent me to a psychiatrist who gave me Ritalin. I didn't know what it was. My parents didn't know what it was. I never even really started taking it. I was like, take half a pill, for a few days and then go to a full pill. And by the time I got to the full pill, my uncle saw it and freaked out. Ritalin? Who's taking Ritalin? And he knew more about it than my parents. As soon as he told them, my father basically turned to me and said, well, I guess you're going to have to go it alone, pal. That's good luck with that. And that was it. I got through school and university and everything without it, and a life.
Going back to the age thing, just for whoever was asking, in school from grade 1 to 3, kids are learning to read. From 4 on, that's when they're reading to learn. So that's where you're really going to start seeing the struggles that kids are having academically. Whether it's ADHD, whether it's a learning disability, that age is where you really start to notice the challenges that kids are facing. So if you can get to it before that, you've done a really nice job, but it's very difficult. And also, we don't necessarily, in terms of diagnosing, sometimes it's best not to give the full diagnosis right away and first work on the skills that they're having troubles with. Maybe it's an auditory processing challenge, maybe it's a visual processing challenge, and then
organizational.
Right. Maturity even. Like you don't, there's a lot of things. So kind of wait on it a little bit, but know that that's typically when you start to see those changes that kids go through is grade 4. Slowly, and then it gets obviously progressively worse if we don't do anything or don't teach them the skills that they need.
I tell people all the time, I was very immature until January, I think.
Last January.
This 2021.
COVID made you really mature.
Yeah, but it's funny you say, my thing was about to fall down. Sorry.
You say.
Yeah, but you mentioned something really good about you start reading to learn, and reading was not my issue, right? Reading was not because, you ask any kid who's got ADHD, opening a book might be a problem, but getting into the book once you started, not a problem. What I needed was that organizational, I needed someone to tell me how, here is daytime, and
Yeah.
write down writing notes, trying to learn and taking notes like some people took notes in class. Impossible for me.
Listen,
Thank you, Stacy and Sherry, and the girls whose notes I
I
carbon
stole.
copied.
Listen, that's exactly like those are all the skills that I'm teaching, all those executive function skills. So the organization, the initiation, the planning, emotional regulation, the impulsivity, those are all they're skills. So we can't say, oh, this kid is being obnoxious, he's rude, he just doesn't have the skills to do those things. So once we can change our mindset and say, this kid is not a bad child. It's not behavioral. He's not doing it on purpose. He shouldn't be able to do these things. We have to teach it to them. And the problem is in class, especially now in schools, there's no time to teach those things. So we're expecting them to sit down at their desk. We're expecting them to take notes. We're expecting them to be organized. We're expecting them not to call out in class, but we're not teaching them how to do it. So that's
my sister just said writing helps her focus. So that must run in the family.
Yeah, we got two writers.
But she's a note taker. She was a better student than I was. If I had to take notes, I wasn't listening. If I listened, I wasn't taking notes. It's simple.
That's amazing. See, for me, I'm the same. When I write it, I know it. I can listen and I can write. If it's coming to me without that, I need that second input. If I'm just hearing it, it's like it's gone 5 seconds later, doesn't exist. So I'm a big note taker.
Well, then I'll tell you one thing. I wasn't good at taking the notes because I wasn't fast enough at taking the notes, but I will tell you that, and don't judge me, damn it, everybody's trying. I was all ready to cheat for an exam in grade 8. It was chemistry, physics. I can't remember what we called it. It was like our intro to chemistry and physics. I don't remember what they called it. And I, to this day, I wrote everything down on notes, on little cribs.
Yeah.
To this day, I can tell you what those notes said word for word. I'm not kidding. I can tell you that an atom is a characteristic property consisting of 3 fundamental particles, protons, neutrons, and electrons. Right? Neutrons. I know. I swear to God,
Yeah.
Memorized. I don't know why. I didn't ever use it. I never used it because I wrote it, and I don't know what was going on in my brain.
Yeah.
I was going, haha. It was like, by doing that little thing, I ended up, I don't know.
Listen, the more inputs you get, some people are very talented at just listening and taking it in, and that's one input, right? You're getting it, it's coming to your ear. For others, they need more. So that's the writing. So you got your tactile. I actually, when I do my notes, I say it as I'm doing it. So I'm getting like lots of inputs. And that's often what I'll teach kids. It's great to just be listening, but how much are you taking in and how much are you retaining for your working memory for longer term? Can you use what I'm giving you? So if teacher says to you, stand up, I want you to grab your book, come to your desk and open to page 35. Are they able to do those 3 steps? Probably a lot of kids may not be able to do that. They'll go, they'll grab their book, they'll chat with their friends, they come back. So we do need to teach them the process of what's the best way for them to learn. And every kid is going to be completely different, that's for sure. And we got to find what suits them.
And these comments are great. And if
I know, I'm reading them too.
I'm not going to hear you. But I'll say this. Somebody said something, I think it was my sister, who said something about photographic memory. I've never had a photographic memory, but for some reason, what's the deal with music? You tell me, I'm asking you. What's the deal with music? Why can I remember
every lyric?
Not just lyrics, everything about music, about the song, I know when the saxophone comes in, I know.
So I'm very much the same. I think for some people, music, first of all, it's on the other side of the brain. So it's not like it's not that heavy language-based kind of thing. It's more of the musical, artistic side. So first of all, we already take that information in very differently. So that's number one. And that's why I'll often say to kids with ADHD is if you can put on music in the background, like see if that helps. For a lot of kids, that helps. Now, here's the deal. Here's the deal with music and studying. It cannot be new music. It cannot be like the new Justin Bieber Peaches song. No. You create a playlist. It has to be music that you know so well that it doesn't distract you.
Good for you.
Thank you. So that's it. Nothing novel. It has to be old school, that it's like kind of background noise because you know it so well. It doesn't.
Which is a double whammy because you're learning new music because it's seeping in
Oh
in the
yeah.
background at the same time. So you're learning music that you didn't, one day you're in the car and you go, I know that song.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
telling you, I can imagine, let's say you were doing something for work, a new song comes on, you're going to be like, huh, because you love music. Did you hear that? Holy, and you're going to start breaking down the music as opposed to doing what you're supposed to be doing. So for me, it's all about playlists. It's all about old music that you're so familiar with that it's not going to excite you. It can't be anything that's going to excite you, just music that gets you going. So that's my music piece. Where I know that we're being asked about like if people with ADHD are necessarily more visual learners. Not necessarily. That just depends on the kid. Some take in information really well visually, and others actually can have a breakdown in the visual processing. So it just depends. And I know that I think I saw Rachel asking if you have any advice for educators.
Oh, me?
Yeah,
I
you.
thought she was asking you.
Oh, I'm not taking this one.
Advice for educators. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what your job is like these days, but I promise you that a kid that is, unless he's got other problems, he or she has other problems we don't know about, at home or whatever. If they're just hyperactive and attention ADHD kind of thing, really all you have to do is talk to them. I promise you that'll make 80% of the difference. Talk to them. Literally mention their name once in a while and go, if we do this, Jim, how would you, and like literally not put them on the spot, just include them in the conversation. I promise you, I've always said that I couldn't learn to drive by watching someone drive. I have to get in the driver's seat. Mm-hmm. And if you let me in the conversation, I might interrupt you, but I promise you I will be learning from you at the same time. People don't realize that. They just think you're interrupting.
Yeah, Stacy says talk to them, not at them, which I think is such a critical point, and just giving them time. Give them some of your own personal time. I think that very often kids with ADHD or executive dysfunction, what it is they never feel like they're amounting to what they're supposed to be, or that people don't think that they're as good as they can be. They're not working enough. They're not trying hard enough. They're not focusing enough. And so I think by just giving them that extra attention and that 5-minute talk at the end of the class, or calling out their name in class, or patting them on the shoulder, those little moments. Yeah.
So it does come back to not wanting to disappoint as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge piece. Right. I think that's a huge piece. And it's funny because the kids that I work with, I mean, I love them. And that's what I'll say to them. When they're being I'll be like, I love you, but if you don't stop right now, that's good. I want them to know that it's never going to disappoint me that I don't want them. I always want them, but I don't want them in this moment. I want them to get it together and let's get started. And that's what I'll say is right now, this is over. I love you. Get started.
Dale Carnegie. Did you ever read Dale Carnegie? The famous How to Win Friends and Influence People?
I haven't read it.
Okay, he had 3 major books that everybody used to read for, I don't know, if you were in sales or anything like that. And How to Win Friends and Influence People, he says people will aspire to be what to meet your image of them.
Right, exactly.
Right? So if you tell them they're shit, they're shit.
They are.
But if you say to them, oh, I know you're going to surprise everybody. Mm-hmm. And if somebody who told me that, I would not let them down.
That's 100% true. We always want to do our very best, but sometimes we gauge ourselves on other people, unfortunately, and we have to also teach our kids to value themselves. And that also comes from showing them that we value ourselves. So I'm a firm believer in being, a good role model, taking those risks. You expect your kids to take risks, you better be taking risks. You want them to, control their emotions, well, you better control your emotions. You want to strive to be the best. You want them to be the best, you need to act the same way. It's all about what they see at home, right?
Oh, don't get me started. Don't get me started. I grew up at a time. Maybe we should
stop here before this gets ugly.
I grew up at a time when it was do as I say, not as I do. And but although I got to tell you, my father was, for the most part, at least with me, when he would speak to me, he was always about setting the example and not being hypocritical about it, not saying, I don't need to do that. You need to do that.
Right.
I remember at one point, in fact, the psychiatrist, after the Ritalin thing, said maybe he should do exercise in the morning, like work out, and we bought weights, and we bought a bench. My father didn't know from weights in Morocco.
He's like, carry the groceries.
Yeah, he woke up with me for a while, somewhere around grade 7 or 8, and we had the little booklet that told us, you're going to do this now, you're going to do curls, and he would do it. It was totally not his thing, and he would just do it, wake up way earlier than he needed to do that with me in the morning, just so he's not saying, yeah, you do it.
Yeah, and it's also like quality time, right? If in the end he did it because he wanted you to do it, but the truth is, like, that time is time well spent with one kid, right?
And nothing wrong with
Sister wasn't there, right? And so I think that's like maybe another important piece is make sure that you're giving each of your kids that 5 minutes of your time that they need for that particular moment in the way that they need it and what they want to do. Because not every kid is the same. Take one for a walk, work out with another, do a dance with another, and my sister just typed, Dad typed our essays. So did my mom.
In fact, the last night I ever had with my dad was I had to hand in a paper the next day in college, and he said, it had to be handed in typed. And he said, I'll type it, but you're sitting right here with me. Well, so, yeah, that was okay.
All right, last question before we go. Mm-hmm. What is a message that I see that there's actually a couple of kids on here. So what is the message that you would send kids who may or may not have ADHD or executive dysfunction, but what would be your message to them?
I'll say it again. It's the same thing. Don't look for excuses, because that doesn't actually benefit you in the end. When you're scared, go out and push yourself to do it, even though you're scared, even more because you're scared. And just get out of that comfort zone, because later on, I promise you right now, Mom and Dad are there to wipe away everything, but it won't always be that way, and get to it now. Some of the smartest kids, the most brilliant kids I've known, they recognize that early. Yeah. And will be successful adults.
Yeah, that's it. That's amazing. That's perfect. I'm actually going to post tomorrow. There's an amazing video with Will Smith. Have you seen it?
Somebody said, be like Mike.
Be like Mike is good too. So Will Smith does an amazing video where he talks about, like, if you're scared, do it scared. And he starts like whapping things.
Oh, yeah.
It's so cute. I'm going to post it. I'll post that tomorrow. But I'm so thankful that you came on. I hope that everybody's questions were answered, and you're amazing.
I'm thankful you had me, because you're amazing.
Thank you. And I hope we'll do it again soon. This is a lot of fun. Again.
Great.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming, everybody. Mike, thank you. You're the best. By the way,
Phil Collins says goodbye.
Oh, God. I mean, I do love him, but that picture's scary.
That is a scary picture, I know.
Bye, everyone. See you.
Have a good one.
Bye.